G'day guys, welcome back to the Flogsville podcast. Another video here. Sorry for the abrupt ending of the last one. The video stopped recording halfway through me talking about the Gold Coast Suns. So let's talk more Suns. Yeah, let's do that. We've got Alex Sexton, Connor Buderick. Who else? Who else at the Suns? Took Miller's underpriced. Sam Flanders, Sexy Flanders. All these guys we'll get a look at in round zero. And if we like their score, I mean, they're all decent options. Obviously, Sexton we spoke about, or we might not have spoken about because that got deleted, is Constable 2.0, in my opinion. Rory Atkins. He's going to score well. How long's he going to be in the team for? So round zero, if he comes out and scores really well, I think we'll be forced to pick him, but just have a plan B because I can't see him playing 4 or 5 games, especially if the Suns have got a bit of a tough start. Richmond in round zero, then the Crows. So the Suns will be keen for finals. They'll be keen to get wins on the board. And I think with other guys back there, such as Will Powell, Connor Buderick as well, good ball users out there. I don't know if Alex Sexton, will keep his spot in the team with a few there. Rookie watch, I think I'm big on Sam Closey, 21-year-old from Werribee. 200k defender, so see how he goes if he gets a game at round zero. I've got big raps on him and I'm usually pretty spot on with my rookies. Small flex there, so love that about the Gold Coast Suns. We can finally move on now and talk about the GWS Giants, one of those early buy teams. Plenty of relevance. Tom Green, we saw him become the premium that we thought we all sort of backed in last year as becoming that 110 guy, and he was awesome. Huge ceiling. You could probably start with him this year because I think he's going to get even better. Just has that early buy in round 3 is the only deterrent. In terms of the Giants, we've got some rookies. Darcy Jones is a high draft pick last year, coming off an ACL. Good little footballer. I think he'll be a small forward, half forward type. So his scoring might be limited, 55, 60 at best. You've got Aaron Cadman, who played last year and didn't really find a lot of it, but number 1 pick. He looks bigger, he looks stronger this year round, and they start with North Melbourne and West Coast in round 1 and round 2. So if he comes out in round 0 and does all right, with North and West Coast to come, he might get off to a bit of a flyer, but he is a key forward, so just be aware. His scoring might be a bit volatile. So they're the 2 standout rookie options at the Giants. In terms of the other guys, we saw Cogs, Jelly, Whitfield, all very good last year. Kingsley putting his best players in their best positions. Fancy that. So yeah, Briggsy was sensational as ruck. I don't know how much improvement he's got in him. That's really it for the Giants. There's not a lot of relevance in terms of across the board. There's just Tom Green, as your primo option, your M1 if you wanted to, and those rookies will be a good watch in round 0. Let's talk about the Hawks, my second favourite team. I love this team. I love Sam Mitchell and the way he coaches. They were awesome to watch last year, back half of last year. I watched a lot of Hawthorn games, which was not what I was expecting to do with my weekends, but I just like the way they go about it. And Will Day especially was the one that really caught my eye. He's unfortunately gone down with a foot issue at the moment, so he's not going to be there till about round 3, round 4. And even then, you'd think they'd be pretty cautious with him. Being their best and fairest last year, a quality young player who's had some injury problems in the past. So that opens the door in that midfield rotation. Is it Jai Newcomb? He's been a guy that's been in my side, a very unique guy as a midfielder who I think can take the next step. Priced at 93. He really needs to push 105 to 110. There's a lot of guys in that 800s price bracket that we're going to speak about coming up of those midfielders that can go, hopefully, that 105 to 110. I think he can. It's just a bit of a risk. I think ownership is about 5%, so it's a real pod. But I do like Duke Newcomb and the way he can score, being that midfielder in there for the Hawks. James Sicily was amazing last year. Had those big ceiling games. I think that's going to be not too many as what he did last year as this year. I think Blank going down and the injuries that Hawthorn have, and I think you saw teams at the back half of last year. Hawthorn are going to win more games this year, and teams will try and stop Sicily because he is the most important player back there. And like the Saints did, definitely later on in the year, they put the worst forward on him, and that was Cooper Sharman at times in that game. I remember, and it just stopped Sicily, going that 120 plus. He'll still score an 80 to a 90, but those ceiling scores I don't think will happen this year. Even Carl Amon, let's speak about him, in the 700s as well, a little bit in the Nick Martin mould. Played a bit of halfback last year, at the back end of last year, and performed really well. Scores really well. We know that from his time at Port, that he is an accumulator. They want the ball in his hands back there. So that's a wait and see. A lot of injuries that the Hawks are going through at the moment. Does Amon push onto a wing, or do they persist with him down at halfback? And if he's at halfback, he's going to score. So again, a really unique pick that you could potentially start with, I think, and then get that defender status in round 6. But it does come with its risk, those halfbacks compared to those inside mids. So yeah, some good options there from the Hawks. And then we've got a guy that has been around my team pretty much since the game opened, and he's already got a bit of attention from his performance in the scratch match last week, or the match sim against the Western Bulldogs, and that's Cam Mackenzie. Big raps on him last year. We all had him to start the year because he got some CBAs. He looked great, high draft pick, first round draft pick, and then was just ruined by the sub and a bit of form last year. Second year, he's had a massive preseason. He's a cheap 400 odd K forward, and he looked great on a wing and getting some inside time. So I think while Will Day is out, I think Cam Mackenzie is going to be the real benefit. Josh Ward's going to be on the other wing. I think CJ going down as well for the Hawks opens up that wing spot for Mackenzie. So I think he's got good job security for the first month or so, and that's all we need from these mid prices at the start of the year, is to start well and get that cash generation going. So yeah, really love C-Mac. I've been all over Connor McDonald, not Mackenzie. McDonald as well as a cheap forward, 600k. Got a lot of time for this guy. I think he's going to be an absolute star of the competition. Not only potentially this year, his third season, high draft pick in the Nick Dacos mould, same draft as him, but just hasn't quite hit the heights. Playing that high half forward role, I don't know if he's going to get enough midfield time to boost up his score to be a top 6 forward, but yeah, it's hard to pick him. I really like him as a pick, and credit to you if you go down that road. No buy as well for Connor McDonald, and he's just an accumulator. Dylan Moore out with glandular fever. Can he average sort of 88 to 90 for the first month of the season potentially? And then you could always sideways until we get a good look at who are the top forwards. I think that's the biggest question mark this year in our teams, is we don't really know, apart from Flanders. McRae's coming off an injury, interrupted preseason. There's a lot of guys there, Dusty Martin around, so there's not too many standout forward primo options. So I think he's a play, again, another player in those 600k range that could be good value for us. In terms of the rookies at Hawthorn, not a lot. Nick Watson's a small forward. I think he'll play. So I think if we're struggling for rookies in the forward line, which I don't think we will be, I think it's one of our strongest lines for rookies. I think in the mids and up forward, we're going to have lots and lots of options. So I don't think Nick Watson, the wizard, you'll need to pick, but it can be a good option. I think he's going to play, but he's not a high accumulator. He's a small forward. Might struggle to put a consistent score on the board. Who else? Ethan Phillips they've picked up as a defender. He might get a game, 200k, one to keep an eye on. Let's talk about Melbourne. Wow, what an off-season Melbourne have had. Let's talk about Max Gawn, underpriced, sole ruck, backs against the wall. We know what he can do. We saw last year the first game without Grundy when they dropped him to the VFL. He went 150 plus. That's what he can do. The only question mark is his age, and also Melbourne, do they come out firing or do they just crumble? And that's going to be very interesting to see. We'll get a look at him against Sydney in round 0, so that'll be interesting to see how Gawn goes against Grundy. If he scores well, I think he's a must start. In terms of captain option, I think Max Gawn is pretty safe as it comes as that sole ruck. I think between him and Rowan Marshall, in terms of the rucks and Tim English we saw at the back end of last year. They were all pretty reliable as captain options, and I think, yeah, having that value, I don't know if he can get back to his 110 plus years, but he probably could, because no one else is going to take that ruck time. Van Ruin will jump in here or there, but it is Max Gawn. He's the captain. He'll want to lead them through the crisis that they're going through at the moment. So, yeah, big watch on Melbourne. They've got some options. Jack Billings has come across from the Saints. Mid-price forward, again, another forward that's a mid-price, so we'll get a look at round 0. In terms of rookies, there's a few at Melbourne, which I like. Bailey Laurie's been one, 3rd or 4th year in the system. I think he'll get a consistent run at it. Potential sub-risk, but I do like him as a 200k. You've got Caleb Windsor, their first-round draft pick from this year's draft. Looks good on a wing. We'll see how he goes in the Community Series, but he's been named, and they really like him. So I think those two definitely will be some options for us. Blake Howes is one as a defender that they're pretty keen on, and he's in the side again tonight. So we'll see how he goes. We'll see how he goes tonight, but he looks like to be in their best 22. Again, he's a 200k defender. I think beggars can't be choosers for us this year in terms of defensive rookies. So it's going to be really interesting to see who we have available. But I think round 0, if he can pop out a 50, he'll be a pretty easy pick for us, I think. That's about it for Melbourne. Petrarca's going to be great. Viney's going to be great. Clayton Oliver's the big question. When does he come back? And where do they manage him? Do they bring him on as the sub? It'll be interesting to see, but I think he'll certainly be an option later in the year if his price goes down due to a couple of sub games, just easing him back into the team. Let's talk about North Melbourne. Who would have thought, hey? Wow, super relevant. We saw last year Harry Sheezel was amazing as that defender halfback, Nick Dacos role. I think he's going to be good again. We saw the match sim against the Pies. He had 40-something touches, looked great at that halfback role into a bit of midfield. I think that'll be the split for him. I think he'll be a bit of halfback mid, very similar to Dacos last year. So I'm pretty bullish on him. Without Zeeble, without Aaron Hall there, it's pretty much Sheezel back there. And this guy, Colby McKercher, if you don't know his name, you'll know it pretty quickly. He is an absolute jet, and he's going to average, I think he can almost be a little bit like Sheezel was last year, almost a keeper for us. He's going to get defender status at round 6 as a mid, and as a rookie, he's an accumulator. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes out and averages 85 straight off the bat, and that's going to be very valuable for us in the back line for a long time, pretty much until luxury upgrade season. I think Colby's going to be awesome. One to watch definitely. In terms of Tristan Cherry, we've got him. A few teams started with him last year, and he came out. First quarter was amazing, and then unfortunately got injured. So it's Cherry 2.0. We saw the games without Goldie. He was really good, and I think he's that perfect age. He's the ruck at North Melbourne now with Goldstein moving on. So perfect value play. We're quite fortunate this year. We've got 3 awesome ruck options, so it's just deciding between those two, I think, is what most teams are going to roll with. So he's a great option. LDU, bit of a sore point for us in the Flogsville community. I know I copped a 0 from him last year, and there was a few that the laid outs, unfortunately, but we picked him last year to break out. And he kind of did. Round 1, round 2, he went 110 plus, and I think he can do that. It's just a case of, can he put it all together? He's the big dog in that midfield now. I think another great pick in the 800s that you could go and that can push the top 8 midfielders for sure. So many more to talk about in North Melbourne. Let's talk about Zach Fisher coming across from Carlton. He's a forward, 600k. We saw him play that role at Carlton, which I think is important in those last 4 or 5 games of last season. He came in and he played some good footy at halfback, played pretty much the entire year at halfback in the VFL. North Melbourne have given him a 5-year deal, so they obviously see him in their best 22. He's had an interrupted preseason with those strings, so that'll be the only question mark of him. And can you have Sheezel, McKercher and Fisher all in the same team? Not to mention if Bailey Scott comes into the team as well. I know he plays wing, but that's just another person to get the ball that they want the ball's hands in. So yeah, it's some question marks for me, but I don't mind the pick at all. He was definitely in my team for a large part of this preseason. He might still be if he gets through the practice match and if he's there round one. So he's a cheap forward option with a good role. So yeah, there's a lot to like there with Zach Fisher. Jai Simpkin, I think he was one of my first picked as the game opened, but I think now with the emergence of Wardlaw, Tom Powell, Lazaro, I think Simpkin gets pushed out to half forward, I think a little bit more. If they have some injuries, he might go back in that role in the midfield, but I think it's LDU, it's Wardlaw, and then it's that third person. I don't think Simpkin's in there anymore. I think this weekend we'll see in the preseason game what the CBA mix is, but I think Simpkin, unfortunately, I love the guy, I love the pick, love the player, great rig. Unfortunately, it's not going to be an option for us. But, who knows? Let's talk about George Wardlaw. He was a very popular rookie last year, came in, little to no preseason, and when he got the chance, few games in the VFL, came on and dominated. I think it's going to be the case. He's a real candidate, priced at 500k. Him and Sheldrick, I think, if you're going to go there in your midfield, are two outstanding options. They're risks because if they don't work out, it's kind of hard to pivot from those positions. So you've got to get a couple of 100k to get up to, a Matt Crouch that we've spoken about already, or a Nick Martin, that kind of areas, or you go down to Jeremy Sharp and play an extra rookie in your midfield, which could be a solution. But I think Wardlaw, they'll be cautious with him given his history. But if he's given full reign, I think he could push 90 easily. He's going to be a star in the years to come, so I really like George Wardlaw as a unique option who's going to improve. Little one on Charlie Lazaro. Let's talk about rookies, okay? We've got Lazaro, came in last year, last game of the year, scored really well in the last two games. Prior to that, had been the sub and had his score ruined, basically. That's why he's rookie priced. I think he's had an unbelievable preseason by all accounts. Now, they're going to give him that role as that fourth, fifth mid, run from half forward. I think he's best 22, so I think he's an on-ground F5, F6 for us. Which is super exciting. So I think, Lazaro I've been keen on for a long time as an option for us in the forward line. Who else can we talk about in the Roos? We've talked about everyone, basically. Toby Pink, we might get 200k, big key back, played in the Sandful last year, so mature age. He could potentially be a rookie option for us back there. All right, let's talk about Port. Lots happening at the Power this year. Rosie and Butters, how good were they last year? Amazing. Both of them can be good options again. I think Port will improve in terms of their fantasy scoring. They weren't great last year. I think there's a few factors contributing to that. I think the lack of a ruckman definitely doesn't help their fantasy scoring. The lack of stoppages, the lack of hit-outs to advantage to help those mids out. I think that'll change with Soldo or Sweet, whoever it is. I think it'll be Soldo at the moment. But yeah, Butters and Rosie, they've got a great run to start the year. I think the first 5 of 6 games are at Adelaide Oval, and they're very good at home. Those two boys especially. So we saw Zach Butters last year went on an unbelievable run, and I think Rosie was a bit underrated in his last back half of the year. I think he went 110 pretty comfortably and had a worse score of in the 90s. So yeah, both those guys are great options for me. Don't have a buy. Yeah, super impressive options. Love those boys. In terms of the rest, Ollie Wines, injury plagued last year, got thrown on a wing, got thrown up forward, just had a shocking year really. He's got his body right by all accounts. He's going to be back in the midfield minutes with Port. It'd be interesting to see, but at price at 77, if he can go 95, 97, that's 20 points upside. So I really like the pick between him, Crouch, Nick Martin. I think that 700 range, you've got some options there. If you want to go there, definitely Ollie Wines with that early fixture, West Coast round 1. You'd think he'd get off to a good start, and we saw that last year with these mid prices. Will Setterfield was the classic example. If you get a guy get off to a really hot start, that cash generation is absolutely gold. So yeah, love Ollie Wines as an option. We've got Jordan Sweet. If he's named, I think we pick him, but I don't see that happening quite at the moment. I think Soldo is number one. I don't think Port will play two because they're very tall with Todd Marshall, Georgiades, Charlie Dixon, Finlayson. They've got a lot of tall options. Ollie Lord as well. So I think there'll be a sole ruck team. Soldo, I think, will be really good if he's sole ruck. Likewise, Jordan Sweet, I think they'll be good in terms of how they go about it. Rookies at Port, Josh Sinn's one, but again, is he best 22? He's been a sub before, and I feel like that might be the case again. So he might be one to avoid. But again, West Coast round one, if he's named, it might be worth taking a bit of a punt on him on your bench, and see if he can pump out a 60 or a 70 against the Eagles. All right, let's talk about Richmond. Not too much to talk about here. Jaden Short obviously will return to halfback under Adam Uze, but he's priced pretty highly, and they've got the early buy, so you've just got to weigh that up, I think. After his buy, potentially I like Jaden Short as a pick. Tim Taranto was unbelievable for us last year, then really slowed down. So yeah, as a mid-only, yeah, it'd be interesting to see how he goes this year. Tim Taranto, not much has been said of him. I don't know what their game style will be. Only watched a little bit last night, and it looks very similar, that Richmond style, to what it has been previously. So I think in terms of the Tigers, not too many options around, to be honest, in the fantasy format. In terms of rookies as well, Kane McAuliffe is the name, but he didn't really get many minutes last night. So I think we'll leave the Tigers there, and we'll move on to the super relevant Saints. St Kilda's as the highest scoring team last year under Ross Lyon. I think, more of the same for the Saints. The only flag is they play a few games out of Marvel Stadium to start the year. So Nazire Wanganeen-Miller, one of my favourite players in the comp to watch, had an unbelievable season last year. I think he does that again. How much does he improve? Can he push towards that 95 plus to be a top six? He's quite expensive. He's priced at 90, 91. So how much growth does he actually have? Sinclair, under a real injury cloud at the moment for round one. I don't think he's going to play round one. That was the news today, that they're going to be cautious with him, and he should be okay for round two, round three. So, you might start Wanganeen-Miller, and he might get off to a flyer the first couple of weeks with Sinclair not being there. Liam Henry coming onto a wing. They've got Hill, Liam Henry are both wings. So it just screams out fast footy. So I think it is going to suit Wanganeen-Miller. They want the ball in his hands. He's got the kick-ins without Sinclair there as well. Yeah, I really like him as an option. In our back line. Jack Steele, injured last year, provided some high scores, and a few coaches got on him at times. He looks super fit. I think he's a 110 guy. I think he can push that. He is St Kilda's midfield at the moment, with the injury cloud of, Brad Crouch. I think he'll be okay for round one. But what does that midfield look like? It is Steele, and then, is it still Seb Ross? Is it Matthias Philippou? Is it Windhager? Those guys coming through. Paddy Dowers as well is a bit behind the eight ball. Does Jack Sinclair go into the CBAs again? Yeah, the Saints are an interesting one to think about. Rowan Marshall, let's talk about him. You could start with him. I like it a lot as a pod. No buy, captain option. He does it all, Rowan Marshall, and he was unbelievable last year as the sole ruck, and we knew that without Paddy Ryder he would be that kind of guy, and I don't see him slowing down this year. So definitely the R1. I think he'll overtake Tim English this year and possibly even win All-Australian. So, really bullish on Rowan Marshall and his prospects. In terms of the Saints, Philippou's one to keep an eye on if he's got that inside mid. Windhager as well as those mid-price guys. But just not sure with a broken hand as well for Windhager. It's a bit of a shame. So, few rookies at the Saints. Potentially Darcy Jones might get a game early on. Look good in the match sim. We'll see how he goes this week. I think he's going to be in the 22, but could be a sub. So 240 odd K, I think, mid forward. So again, the mid forwards, we're going to have plenty of options there. Max Heath, will he get a game? We kind of hope not, because we love Rowan Marshall being sole ruck. So yeah, we'll see if he gets a game, but could be a popular R3 if we've got no other options just to loop. And I think that's it for the Saints. I think we've, spoken about everyone. Let's talk about the Swans. Wow. Sydney are so relevant this year. Brodie Grundy coming across, sole ruck, super value. Again, round zero with all these Sydney guys. So we will get a look at Taylor Adams. We will get a look at James Jordan. We'll get a look at Errol Goulden. How good was he last year? And he looks so thirsty for the ball. I think you'll get more inside time with Parker out. No Parker, no Mills for the start of the year. So that's where Taylor Adams, your James Jordans, Errol Goulden, Chad Warner, I think they all get a bit of a bump in there. Potentially Angus Sheldrick, if we see that this weekend in their practice match. Could be one in the 500s that you could start or get on if he gets off to a hot start. So they do have the round 5 bye. So I think if you're playing that strategy, just be really careful how many Sydney players you have, because if you pick 3 or 4, it could be, with best 18, it could be really a bit of a down week for you. So you just got to watch that. But I think they're all great options, and they're all, probably the most fantasy relevant team, I think, Sydney at the moment, just to see where it all sits. Rookies, Matt Roberts, we picked him last year. Unfortunately, he got injured. I think he's got all the potential to be a 65-70, but he is that sub-risk, and Sydney, again, are such a quality team, a little bit like Finn McRae. He's probably, the 22nd or 23rd player. So he's not, a guarantee week by week, which is a bit dangerous. But I think, see how he plays round zero. If he comes out and scores 60, get on him, throw him on your bench, and he'll be sweet. All right, West Coast. Let's get through some Eagles. We've got 2 to go. Elliot Yeo, we had him last year, and then he got injured probably this time before the season started, and sort of, it's the same again. He's inside mid. He's done a full preseason. So if he's there, I think he's an obvious pick, but there's the flags. There's the flags that he's playing for West Coast. He's injury prone. It's just going to be how long he'll be in that team. I can't see him playing every game this year. So it's just riding the Elliot Yeo wave. Could get you off to a really good start. Average, 85, 90. Priced in those early 600s, similar to a Kitty Coleman, I think can be that kind of range. As an inside mid, we love that. Defenders who play inside mid, we've seen it in the past with George Hewitt, we've seen it with Jordan Dawson. Those defenders that can chop in the midfield are usually good fantasy picks. So really bullish on Elliot Yeo, hoping he gets through. In terms of the rest of the Eagles, Liam Duggan, I don't mind as a defensive pod. The ball's going to be down there. They're going to be terrible again. He's going to get a lot of it. And being the captain now, I think similar to other captains in the league, I think he'll demand the ball a little bit more. So there's a bit of growth there for him potentially. Apart from that, Harley Reid's the other one. I think, the number 1 pick. Is he going to be an accumulator? He's sort of been in and out, a few knocks in the preseason. Like, the kid is a gun, but I'm a little bit cautious about how he's going to go on field. I know a lot of teams will have him on field. I certainly will probably have him on field as well, but he's just one to monitor. He's got that halfback and a bit of mid-roll. So again, in that Sheasel, Dacos kind of rookie first-year player McKercher role, where he'll have majority of his time behind the ball, learning the ropes. The ball's going to be down there. They'll want the ball in his hands. He'll take the game on. Just his accumulation, I don't know if he's a guy that'll have 20 touches and 6 marks. Like, I think he might be, maybe an impact player at the start of his career and then slowly accumulate. So he might be a bit more of a Jason Horne-Francis type, where he might only average 55, 60-ish and play and look really good and provide those moments, but in terms of fantasy scoring he might struggle a little bit. So watch on Harley Reid whether we start him or not, but he's got to be there. He's got the best job security of any rookie, so you just have to have him, and he's a mid forward, so he's a gift for us in that space. All right, let's talk about Bevo's Western Bulldogs. We love the Bulldogs for their fantasy scoring. We hate Luke Beveridge for the way he puts his team together and some of the bullshit that goes with that. But we do have some options. We saw Tim English and Marcus Bontempelli last year, amazing picks. Great to see them, fulfill their potential in a fantasy sense, also real life sense as well. So the Dogs mids, they score. Libba, Treloar, Bont, they all score. They're a high stoppage team. We know this. So there's some options there if you want those full price guys. Now, let's talk about Riley Sanders. Again, he's got to be on your ground. He is in that number 9. He wears the long socks, black boots. There's a lot of aesthetics about Riley Sanders, and he's going to get mid-time. He's going to be in the guts, and he's going to play and score. I think along with McKercher, he could potentially average 75, 80. He is in that mould of some of the rookies we've had in the past, like a Sam Walsh, like a Nick Dacos, Harry Sheasel, where he might pick up forward status and be a bit of a keeper for us throughout the year. So I'm really bullish on Riley Sanders. The kid is a jet, and they love him, and there's no reason why. His job security is going to be great. He slots into the Dogs really well. So excited to watch him play. Let's go Jack Macrae. Historically, amazing fantasy footballer. Not one of my favourites, but I think injury-interrupted preseason is going to be very hard to pick him. I don't know if he's got that role anymore. I think he might be stuck on a wing, half forward, like Bailey Smith going down, I think helped him initially, but I think Riley Sanders, James Harms, Caleb Daniel, those sort of names are going to be floating through in those areas. So it's going to be interesting to see how Macrae fits into that team. Let's talk about James Harms. They brought him over from Melbourne. He's in the early 600s priced at. I don't know if there's enough upside, but certainly he can accumulate. Round 1, he plays Melbourne, so no doubt he'll be keen for that revenge game, and he might get off to a good start. So it might not be a bad option if you're not keen on a Zach Fisher, if you're not keen on a Connor McDonald, a Taylor Adams, a Josh Rochelle, that kind of 600k type. James Harms might be a smoky in terms of he might give you an 85 or an 80 sort of average for the start of the year. So really bullish on him as a unique option. In terms of that, I think that's pretty much it for the Bulldogs. I think we got there. So not too many options rookie-wise apart from Riley Sanders. And then the premiums, it's the Bont, but he's fully priced, and it's not too many too many options. So I hope you enjoyed the preview. It is a bit of a longer video, this one, but hopefully that's given you a few ideas, and I've maybe given away too much information, but sue me. That's okay. All right, we'll enjoy the practice matches, and I will, no doubt we'll see you as we head towards round 0 and round 1.